Like, I probably shouldn't be watching the reaction chat, but oh man, I am.
Yeah.
ZPTV in the house.
Woo!
There's his face. You saw it here.
Wait, is it
first.
actually live right now?
Yeah.
Oh god.
There's a little bit of a delay.
What a handsome face it is. Look at him. Well,
I feel like I'm on display.
well, we'll take some of the
I kinda
some
am.
of the attention off you. Guys, welcome to Eye on the Storm. This is our first show as Eye on the Storm. We were previously studying the storm. I'm Anna Prosser, one of your hosts. You may know me as a video games host, journalist, all-around freelancer, as well as working for Good Game Agency, which owns Evil Geniuses and Alliance. And I am one of your hosts for this show, which focuses on Blizzard's game, Heroes of the Storm. We'll talk a little bit more about what the show actually entails in just a moment, but let me introduce you to my co-host.
Hey guys, I'm Gillyweed, Gillyweed SC2 on all the things, and you might know me from my StarCraft content. I also do a little bit of board gaming content as well, and I've recently been streaming up a storm of Heroes of the Storm as well. And this is our guest for this week, ZP. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, this is actually first time webcam, which half the people here are making fun of me for. No, but aside from that, I do lots of streaming Heroes, and I play with Glorious Gaming, which is one of the comp teams right now.
Nice.
So stream, of course, just, you know, what's it called? Usually from like 9 to 4 most days. Stuff like that.
Yeah, I've watched your streams, and you have a first of all, a very pleasant voice, which was good because I couldn't see you, so I listened very hard to your voice. And then a very instructional way of casting and playing and kind of giving analysis. So I highly recommend ZP's streams, guys. If you haven't checked those out yet, please do. But before you do, stick around and watch this show. As I said, this is Eye on the Storm. And what this show started as is the effort of Gilly and I to kind of really get to know this game because we found a really deep-seated love for it right away. It is in Tech Alpha right now, and we were lucky enough to get one of the invites to participate in that Tech Alpha, and we would really love to be able to cast the game and give really deep analysis. So we've been working on spending time together just studying the game, and that turned into a show where we shared our studying with you. And as of last week, we officially graduated from that studying phase, and now we're diving deeper into kind of the meta of the game, learning from some of the experts, featuring people from the community, and so we'll be doing a little bit more on the kind of the strategy side and the learning side. We'll still be doing lots of learning, but we're done with the basics, and we're really keeping our eye on the storm now. So, Gilly, why don't you tell them what our show generally looks like in terms of what we'll be doing today?
Okay, and while I do that, apparently your mic is very low, so I will do that. You check your mic.
Okay.
We've been having trouble with her mic today, so hopefully we can get it fixed for you guys. Typically, our show every week, we come on, we bring a guest on, we talk about some facet of the game. This week, our topic is going to be an in-depth look at the Garden of Terror map. Really excited about that. After that, we always have a hero spotlight where we look at one of the heroes for the game, talk a little bit about them, and then look at a sample build for them as well. After that, we have a quiz, and this week's quiz is going to be a quiz / a Q&A for our guests, so you can ask questions of our guest, as well as this is a studying show for us, so you can tweet us questions from either something that we learned this week or from previous episodes. And Anna and I have to answer as many as possible, and ZP can either help us out or ask us questions or make fun of us when we can't answer the questions, whatever he feels like doing.
There'll be no making.
No.
I screwed it all up. I screwed it all up. Gotta continue.
No, you're fine. So while we're learning this week, guys, don't forget that you can at any time start tweeting us questions with the hashtag StormShow. It's a new one to coincide with our new name. So feel free to tweet us that. After that, we will have a play session for you guys. We're going to do a custom game. We've already got all of the people that we need for it, and we're going to be doing that on Garden of Terror to go with our theme, and then we'll have a community spotlight before the end of the show.
Hooray! I'm so excited.
Hooray.
And in keeping with the fact that we're going to kind of start going deeper into this game, we're going to really focus today on one particular map. And ZP has agreed to kind of take us through the ins and outs of the Garden of Terror map, one of the newer maps, one that still has a lot of mystery about it, one that I feel like a lot of people have told me that they still can't quite get the timings of or know which is most important to do. So we're really going to go deep on that one and talk with ZP about, as somebody who is one of the competitive teams, or on one of the competitive teams, how to really approach this map and be really competitive on it. And let me know, guys, if my mic is better now. I hope it should be. So anyway, let's get right into it. So let's review just the basics of the Garden of Terror. I'm going to actually pull up the map itself so we can take a look at that. Just give me a second here. And Gilly, why don't you review what we learned about the Garden of Terror when we did our overview of maps?
Yes, I would love to do that. So the Garden of Terror is a 3-lane map. And the basic premise of the game, the basic map objective, is that you have to kill certain mobs in order to gather seeds. And once you gather 100 seeds between you and your teammates, then a Garden Terror grows. And you can take over the Garden Terror, and then you get new abilities, you become really strong, and you can use that to push down lanes and try to win the game. So it's all about getting seeds, keeping the opposing team from getting those seeds, and becoming the Garden Terror, because if you don't become the Garden Terror on time, you will lose it, which also sucks. So that's the basic premise behind the Garden Terror map. So I don't know where we want to dive in here, but I thought a good place to start might be sort of the timings of objectives. There's a lot going on this map. There's a day and night phase, and you can only gather seeds at night. During the day, and as well at night, you can also get merc camps, but you can't get those while a Garden Terror is active, and so there's just a lot going on. So I didn't know, maybe ZP, if you could give us like sort of a general idea of how you approach like timings of objectives for this map.
So it can get pretty complex because people are trying to balance mercs and seeds, but one thing that is a pretty consistent part on Garden Terror is that the small seed camps, not the big terrors, but the small seed camps are always a point of contention early on. And the reason being is that they're very quick to clear. 1 or 2 heroes can do it, and you'll have to have a lot of mini fights in the beginning of the game for those seeds. Usually the team that's sort of bullying the other team in lane will kind of go out of their way to grab those seeds, because each mini seed camp gives 15 seeds. So if you gather all of them, you're at 60. And there's only 180 on any given night, so it's really in your advantage to grab those early. Because, when people go for the bigger plants, it's much more of a bigger fight and investment to go there, and that's where, teams will often try to engage or, try and push or do something while you're distracted at that plant.
Yeah, that does take a lot longer, so I feel like I've been caught out there. If you have 2 of you kind of trying to get that, we used to call it the Flowering Shambler, but I guess it's just called a Garden Terror. Right?
Yeah.
Or a horror.
Oh, yeah, the horror name created a lot of trouble for Blizzard when that came out, because people were mispronouncing the crap out of that.
Yeah.
It did not end well.
So
there were some meme pictures made.
Okay, so the little ones are horrors and the big one is horror. So I guess they're all horrors. And, going for that big one, I feel like there's been a lot of situations where it's a teammate and I, and then, 3 of the other teams show up and we just can't quite hold it off, and they end up either just stealing all of our seeds before we're done or just killing us. So that makes a lot of sense.
Right, and then finishing the terror off and killing it as well, and getting the seeds.
Yep. And one thing now, too, is that when the Garden Terrors spawn, they actually spawn in a fixed strength. So the longer they're up, the easier they are to kill as the game goes on. So what you'll see is that, the Garden Terrors come up around, say, a minute 30 or so. So teams might not go for them right away. In fact, oftentimes they don't. But if no one's taken them by about 4 or 5 minutes, 2 or 3 heroes can rush in and very easily kill them without a whole lot of investment. So, the longer they're up, the easier they are to kill.
I did not know that.
I didn't know that either.
That's really interesting. So it kind of behooves you to wait a little while to get them, but the longer you wait, the more chance there is that the other team's going to go grab them as well.
For sure.
Yep.
So how does that affect your strategy in terms of, do you choose to team fight before you go get the seeds to try to take out the other team so they can't do that, or do you generally try to get the seeds right away, or what do you and your team generally do?
Generally speaking, there's a huge priority on the small seed camps. Say you're running a Zeratul comp or something, right? Zeratul is going to go out of his way, usually oftentimes be aggressive, take the seeds that are near the enemy side, and try and get those in the very beginning. The bigger plants, it really depends. Oftentimes, if you say you gank someone, that's a great time to go forth and get the one of the big camps. But the one thing you have to balance it against is that other objectives on the map are also important, like, say, the enemy night camp, the enemy ogres. Stuff like that all plays a very big role. So, maybe if you get, 2 or 3 kills, maybe you don't want to go immediately to the plant. You want to go and steal their knights, steal their ogres, and then while they're fighting that off, then take the plant.
Ah, that totally makes sense.
So all of that definitely plays a role.
Do you guys, as far as your own sides, Mercs, do you typically try to take them during the day to go off of the phase, or is it just a completely going off of how the game goes?
It's just going off how the game goes. In fact, the original version of Garden of Terror despawned all the mercenaries while the plants were up to try and focus people on the plant fight, but what ended up is that no one went for anything, and it was like a very turtley matchup. Having the mercs there is really important to kind of get people to go for the plant. Well, that and the plant itself got buffed over time, so the original plant was nowhere near as scary as the plant today.
Yeah, because of the speed boost.
Well, it got a speed boost. I think its polymorph got a huge buff. The polymorph now is like a polymorph zone. So what will happen is that if you're pushing with the plant, you throw the polymorph in, like, say, the gate area, and it's a zone that you can't even go through without getting CC'd, and it's very, very difficult to deal with. It forces teams to kind of have to get out of their comfort zone to defend. Whereas before, it was sort of a one-shot polymorph. You could dodge it easily, and it didn't have nearly the impact that it does today.
Yeah, it seems like I'm getting turned into a plant a lot more now. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Yep, it's hard too, because you always, even if you're on the very edge of it, you'll still get turned in. You're like, why?
Yep. Yeah, it actually has a deceptive radius. Like, you see it, the radius being something, and then it's like, oh, my pinky toe's over it. Doesn't matter, turning into a plant.
So guys, if you aren't familiar with what we're talking about, just to kind of review some of the basics, if you just joined the alpha, there was a new wave recently. Once you get 100 seeds, back here in your base, I'll show you, you have a spawning point for where your Garden Terror will come to life, and you kind of put that on like a suit, just like you would the the Dragon Knight. So you put that on as a suit, and you can go. You have special powers. One of them is that you get to turn your opponents into a plant zombie. That's what we're talking about there. You've also got a demolition type ability that can do a lot of damage to buildings and things like that. So you're basically a walking golem, or a big baddie, and then once that runs out of HP, you still have your own HP inside that you can run back from. So it's just a huge buff for your team that people are generally going to use to push. So knowing now that we need to really focus early on the small seeds, try to take maybe some merc camps, maybe take a few of them down, and then go back for the big ones if we can. That's a huge help to me in kind of prioritizing when we would do the objectives. Would you say that's almost all the time, ZP, or are there exceptions to that? Like if you were trying a specific strat, would you ever ignore the seeds completely, or go 100% for the seeds, or is it always going to be kind of that strategy?
So, I mean, in general, I think that's the general strategy most of the time, but there's always caveats, right? Like, maybe there's a situation where you wipe their entire team, and it's like, well, hey, we can get anything on the map. Maybe we should get seeds. But it's becoming more and more now where people will take those sorts of opportunities to actually just push a lane down outright, because the theory is that when you have that big of an advantage, you can push, and then people are going to take so long to get back that you can probably get the other stuff without a whole lot of interference anyways.
So in talking about why you would make certain decisions and all of that, let's kind of transition into talking about team composition. When you're looking at this map, is that going to impact which heroes you're actually choosing? Are there heroes that are better for this map, or compositions that are better for this map as opposed to other ones?
In general, it's a map that actually has room for a bunch of different comps. The lanes are long enough. Unlike a map like Crystal, which has very short lanes. The lanes are long enough that you can really get a lot of mileage out of big early game heroes. Heroes like Kerrigan, for example, that featuring like today, actually, she does great on Garden of Terror. She's a very big force in the beginning ganking game. And if you get your team ahead, you can really snowball that forward. But it's also a great map for heroes that like doing pushing too, because it's such a big map. It's hard to really rotate over to clear everything out repeatedly. So heroes like Abathur actually do a lot of work on Garden of Terror. Just because of, Locust pushing, promote, and all the sorts of nonsense people are getting up to this patch.
I see. So heroes that are going to give you a lot of mobility and heroes that have a lot of pushing power are going to be really good choices for this map then?
Yep, absolutely.
Cool. So what's a sample team comp that, like, if you were in a competition right now with Glorious and you knew this was going to be your map, what would be, like, an ideal 5 that you would choose?
An ideal 5. Well, you could. There's like multiple different setups you could use. Again, you could go for a really strong early game team. Go say Arthas, Kerrigan, Uther, and then throw in some range like Falstad, Vala. Well, Falstad it's probably unrealistic to get all of them, but Tessar, Falstad, Vala, Tychus. Some combination thereof to go with like an Arthas, Kerrigan early game core. Or you could do more push oriented and have a team that we tried in a recent Nexus tournament, not entirely the full success, but still decent. A team that uses heroes like Abathur, Asmodan, those heroes that are really, really strong at pushing that basically force the enemy team to beat you with plant terrors or just outright lose.
Okay.
So there's kind of... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. You get to go ahead, it's fine.
Oh, no, I was just going to say, so there's kind of... We've heard this about almost every map, but basically there's a generally accepted good kind of team composition that's going to be good on any map. But then there are also heroes that if you're kind of going for a really special kind of attempt or approach to this map, that you're going to want to use those special heroes. Is that right?
Yeah, and I would actually say Garn is the more neutral of the maps that's in the game right now. It's not a Haunted Mines situation where you look at Haunted Mines and the early heroes are really, really effective on that. Like, case in point, for Haunted Mines, heroes like Zagar and Kerrigan are actually way disproportionately powerful because, in the eyes of many people, those maps get decided very, very early on. And, a hero like Zagar is, like, crazy disproportionately strong in the early game. So it's not quite a Haunted Mines situation. I think that just has a lot of room for quite a variety of strategies.
So would you say it's, like, you mentioned snowballing or getting momentum and stuff like that. Would you say this is a map that you're going to have less ability to kind of snowball on?
I wouldn't say it's like Heroes is inherently pretty snowbally, but you have more chances to come back. It's 3 lanes. It's a really big map, so there's way more that you can actually do to come back if you get behind. You can, there's ambush points to attack the other team because again people are more likely to be spread out at points because of the map size. There's a lot of pushing you can do. There's there's even just simple lane soaking. There's a lot of ways of catching up on a map like Garden of Terror relative to say I'll single out Haunted Mines, a 2-lane map without a whole lot of objectives.
Got it. What were you about to say?
Oh, well, I was going to say, if you do have like a standard composition on this, more like the Arthas Kerrigan one that you mentioned before, how does what you go for change as you get further into the game? So, for instance, early on, do you focus on staying in lanes more and only the small groups of plants, but then later on start going for the bigger ones more often? Is it something that's completely game related, or like what do you guys typically do as a strategy?
Well, generally speaking, that's where comp is really focused on, getting picks and then going forth and taking objectives afterwards. So it really just kind of depends on what you can get away from. If you're in a situation where you feel you can get the big plant early and you get a tear immediately after getting it, oftentimes that can be really good. If you're just getting a kill, getting mercs, and otherwise, that can also be good. It just kind of depends on the situation. It's hard to say it's like, this is happening here, do X or Y. It's very variable based on, what opportunities you have available to you.
I think that's so cool that there's also lots of options for you too, right? So like if you're able to pick off a couple of their heroes, there's generally lots of different things you can do. And so it's not just a straight, now I have to do this. It's more like, well, we could try to take one of their merc camps, we could try to go for the seeds. I think that's really cool about heroes. I like it a lot.
On that note, I think one of the most difficult things that I've been dealing with as I play with different teams is when you get to that moment where like, oh, we just took out 3 of their heroes and we're 5. We have a huge advantage. We have a window right now where we could do something, where we could go take out the big plant, or we could go grab their knights, or, one of those things. The problem is that we get paralyzed with not knowing which of those things is the best thing to do. So as a pro, or as somebody who, has learned how to make those good decisions, what would you suggest to someone to start having that awareness of what are the right ways to take advantage of those moments?
Well, I guess the easier answer to that would just be, experience, play a lot.
Yeah.
But short of that, I mean, the biggest thing would be make a decision quickly, whatever it is. Like, if you're going to take something, just take it. Like, don't sit there and, debate or like, indecision is worse than a bad decision in most cases. So, if you decide, hey, we're going to get mercs, go get the mercs. If you decide we're going to push, immediately start pushing. What happens a lot of times at teams, and it's happened in the comp scene as well, in serious matches where people are over debating stuff, is that you see teams kind of go like back and forth, not even doing anything. They're just crazy paralyzed by what's going on, and you have to make a decision, I guess, is what I would say. Just go with whatever's called, even if you disagree with it, and then hope it works out.
That makes sense. I'm kind of getting that sense that as long as you do something advantageous, it doesn't really matter if it was the one right thing. Everything is going to be helpful.
Yeah.
Yep.
Is there any sort of is there any point where maybe mercs aren't a good idea because they're not, are they not as strong in the late game because heroes can take them out easier? Is there anything like that that is good to know, I guess, for when you're playing?
I would say depending on how many heroes are down, certainly pushing has a better effect as time goes on. If you can push down, say, a keep or something, that's way more important than going out and getting, knights or ogres. But knights and ogres, well, particularly ogres, always have to be respected. I mean, one of the things that really is bad in the late game, if you're facing it, and great for the other team, is that you'll have a team capture ogres and then fight you over an objective, but really kind of stall you out. So while you're sitting there playing footsie over, say, a plant terror or a curse or something like that, the ogres are slowly pushing a lane, and the creep wave won't actually deal with them. So it's entirely in the other team's interest to just kind of stall you out while the ogres push, and it's really annoying and happens all the time. And it's a great strategy to use yourself, but man, you fall at the opposite end, it gets frustrating.
That makes sense, because I guess I think of the giants as not as big of a threat because they are the easy camp that I can take out. I can maybe solo that by myself, but that makes a lot of sense that if left unattended, they're actually going to be really, really dangerous for your lane, more, disproportionately for how much effort it takes to capture them. Did you say that's right?
Oh, yeah. Oftentimes, giants, you look at maps like Dragonshire, giants are, the scariest thing on the map. Knights, they got a buff, sort of, in the last patch. They Mage shoots arcane missiles. It doesn't really, I don't know, Knights kind of feel the same effectiveness, and that effectiveness is a lot lower than where the ogres have been. Mm-hmm. The ogres are awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, well, they don't get attacked. They have a better range then, which is, I think, I'm the same way, Anna. I always think, oh, it's just the giants, it's fine, but then all of a sudden it's why are they still up?
Right. Totally. Okay. Well, so, again, JC and I will ask you questions all day, but I know we want to get to our play session and our character spotlight and all of that. But I guess, are there any other little tips and tricks? And I know that as a competitive team, you don't want to give away some of your best secrets or anything like that. But any tips or tricks that you could share with us or with our audience that are hey, this is one thing I found out about Garden of Terror that really changed the way I look at it, or that a lot of people don't know, or kind of those little hidden gems?
I'm trying to think of something Garden of Terror specific. I will give a global tip, which is that for many heroes, it's not mandatory. There's some people that play, it can be preference, but for a lot of people, quick cast is an incredible option in the game. It's in the settings menu. It's actually buried. No tutorial is going to get you there. You hit escape. It's under. I'm actually trying to remember it. It's options, gameplay, and then it's just a little bar that says quick cast. That's by default set to off. If you set it to on, it makes a lot of heroes that rely on quick skill shots a lot easier, because instead of, say Kerrigan, since you focus on Kerrigan, say you want to throw her WE combo out. Without quick cast, you have to, hit W, you have a circle, then you then have to click it, and then you have to E, and then you get her E, and then you have to click that. Whereas with quick cast on, everything casts where your cursor is. So a Kerrigan combo is as simple as, hitting Q on someone, then just tapping W and E with your mouse cursor in between yourself and the person you're trying to combo.
Wow. That's huge.
I had a question about that. I had heard that there was an issue with quick cast where if something's on cooldown, if something's in the middle of casting, it won't queue up. So if you do them too fast, it won't register the next one. Is that the case, or is that just something that I made up?
So that was a bug that happened in a patch that made life really, really terrible for Zeratul players for a while. It actually got hotfixed, I think, within about 4 days. But yeah, there was a bug for a while where it screwed everything up, and Glarong, a member of my team that's known for playing a lot of Stitches, was really he was not happy for 4 days.
Oh, okay. That's good to know. Because, that is so amazing.
So then, on that note, too, what are your overall impressions of this map and the way that it's grown so far? Meaning, how do you think it's different now than it was before, and where do you think it might end up if we do see any more changes or patches to this map?
I don't think Garden's going to be changed anytime soon. I think it's if the developers do, occasionally go around and ask people, what they think about stuff, and Garden is the one map that I don't think anyone complains about anymore. It used to be the map that everyone hated, but Garden, it feels really good right now as a map. It's the map that, I'm certainly most okay with. There's a map that I have the least amount of complaints on. You know, in general, it's pretty good. I mean, all the other maps, people sort of have, complaints, ranging from very strong to, mild. Like, I would say the strongest complaints come from High Minds because it's a very snowballing map. Oftentimes, the team that wins the first team fight and gets the first goal and can snowball that to win the game. And then it kind of goes down from there. Black Hearts, people think, has sort of a similar snowball issue, but, in my opinion, there's way more chances to come back in Black Hearts. But Black Hearts definitely has some issues with the turn-ins and how teams sort of avoid each other. And then, you go down to mild annoyances, Dragonshire. Sometimes you get games where teams end up rotating around and just, trading shrines for, 5 minutes straight. It's like, are you guys going to fight already?
I love those. Well, that's good, because we actually had a question on Twitter for you, if by @_jammer, if the changes to the Garden of Terror map made it your favorite map now. So I think that's good.
Yep. Answer that would be definitely yes.
Yeah, the changes, if some of you, again, are new to the game, a lot of changes were made to how the Garden Terror spawns and how long you have to grab it, and it's possible to completely lose it now, as opposed to before where you could sit on it, right? I didn't play it very much in the early stages, but is that right?
Yeah, before what happened is that, so you could activate the Garden Terror at any point, and what would happen is that, it still increased in strength as the game went on. So people would stockpile, 300, 400 seeds, and you wouldn't use it until the late game. But then you had this part where it's sort of better at defending at times. That's kind of a debate whether you want to use it for offense or defense. But if you just have one plant terror to defend with and the other team has nothing, your entire team can get wiped, and then or not the entire team, but everyone but one can get wiped, and one person can have the Garden Terror and really, really delay heavily. And that can happen 2 or 3 times in a row on the old design. So that got a little bit old on people, which is why it now has the 1 minute time limit.
Mm-hmm. I like that. It makes it more exciting.
Yeah. No, it was a great change.
And more strategic, too, I think, in that, you want to be looking at, okay, do we have enough to get the terror? Is this a good time to get the terror? And knowing that once you pick up the terror, the merc camps go away. So it's something to consider, should you start this camp before I go? I think it really adds to the strategy of the map as well.
That actually reminded me, one thing you see teams do a lot is that when they're about to grab the terror, so when the terror is active, any merc camps that aren't in combat actually despawn temporarily. So what you'll see at teams go is that, if we're going to grab a Garden Terror, standard team will be like, wait, we want to start the Ogres or Knights, then grab it, because then you can, get the mercs going with your Garden Terror instead of, just the Garden Terror. But you have to start before you spawn it, otherwise they disappear. Coincidentally, it's also a way of seeing where your enemies are merking, because if you grab the Garden Terror and then you see a random merc camp that hasn't disappeared, you know that someone's in combat there. And it's a very subtle thing, but it's a thing.
Got it.
I think it's so cool. I love that. I love that part of it.
Awesome.
And I guess one thing, someone just told me a message that one thing that does happen, and it's pretty rare that it happens that way, but because you have to channel to grab it, if the other team is in your base and they're getting Garden Terror, you can actually sort of delay on their Garden Terror spawn for a minute and stop them from which is really, really crappy from the other team. Because you want to get into plant, and having, I think the last time I was in a plant just, camping their plant spawn, and I don't think they're happy.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Very cool. A lot of really, insights that I kind of knew of conceptually but hadn't put together in terms of what my response to those should be, especially what you just said about the, starting a merc camp before you grab the terror. That's something that just hadn't occurred to me that's going to make such a big difference. So thank you for that. I know that, Gilly, you were mentioning that one thing you were looking for was map secrets?
Yeah, so I love that on all of the maps, they have, Blue just put in some cool little animations or something in there, and so I didn't know if you had seen, particularly on this map, any cool little things, there's the Kraken on Blackheart's Bay, or the like.
Oh, the Kraken. Yeah, I don't think anything tops the Kraken. I mean, it's a Kraken. You're not topping the Kraken. It's a thing you look at as just holy crap, this could be a map mechanic. It's actually, Blackhearts is just awesome. I mean, I would actually get flayed by my stream if I didn't give a shout out to the sharks. So you may or may not know this, but there's 2 big sharks on Blackheart's Bay, and you can free them.
I just found that out in game, 2 games ago. I just found that out. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Not every hero can free them, by the way, which,
really?
There needs to be a tier list on whether or not you can free the sharks. I don't know. But the way the sharks are, something like Tychus, he walks over, throws a grenade. The shark will free itself from the platform and do a majestic leap into the water. It has absolutely no effect on the game, but it probably should raise your morale a little bit.
Yeah, it totally did. I think I won the game after that happened, so it must have at least a morale boost. I was wondering because I think I killed someone right next to the shark. Like, I got a kill, and then the shark was freed, and he jumped into the water. So I thought it had to do with getting a kill right next to him, but maybe because I think I was playing Tychus, maybe I just threw a grenade at him on accident.
Unfortunately, you were not cool enough that the shark just freed itself off your kill.
Oh, man.
Well, I'm looking, and I think that there's at least the Dragon Shrine in the Garden of Terror map. It's, like, overgrown at the very top in the center.
I'm looking right now.
That's pretty cool.
I think I noticed that one the other day. Oh yeah, and there was this theory that all of the maps are actually somehow intertwined, like they all go next to each other somehow. I heard. Cool. I don't know if that's true.
I did not hear that.
I mean,
that's something I did not know.
I could be wrong, but I just heard someone spout that theory to me once.
That'd be pretty neat.
Okay, well, anyway, all sorts of fun lore crafting aside. That's a great overview of the Garden of Terror. Thank you so much, ZP. That's going to be really useful to me. In terms of like the things that I took away from that, Quick Cast on Kerrigan, I'm totally going to give that a try because I have never used Quick Cast, but that sounds like it would really up my game, especially on her combo. I loved the very simple snippet, the indecision is worse than not making a decision. Does that make sense? Just make a decision, it's better.
Indecision is worse than making a bad decision.
Right, that's what it was. Thank you.
That's okay.
And then getting the small seeds first, obviously, and then starting the nights before you grab your Garden Terror. Those are little tips that I'm going to take away. Anything that I missed, Gilly, that made a big impression on you?
That the longer the terrors are up, the easier they are to take down.
Yeah. That's
Super
a good one,
cool.
too. Okay, well, great. Now, we've talked about Kerrigan a couple times. We've kind of teased. And I'm super excited, as a lot of you who may have watched my stream or this show before know, I am a huge Kerrigan fan. I love playing her, and I've been so disappointed lately because she is generally regarded as weak right now, and people are not playing her, and they don't think she's viable. But ZP told us that she is viable and that we are going to feature her as our hero spotlight this week, and he shared a build with us, and I'm super excited to hear how Kerrigan is viable and how I should build her from now on. Yay! So I'm looking at our build in Heroes Fire right now. ZP, why don't you give us kind of the overview, just go through each of the talents and why you picked those to build her, and maybe we should even start by just reviewing her Q, W, E, and R really quick as well.
Oh, absolutely. So Kerrigan, her base skill set basically lends her to doing the following. She leaps in, she gap closes, and then she pulls people in, and then she has a skill that stuns them after she pulls people in. But the trick is that the game doesn't automatically do that for you. The stun and the pull are separate, so kind of the heart of Kerrigan is what's I guess you recall the Kerrigan combo is that you throw down your W and then you pull people into it. And it gets tricky, though, because people oftentimes will try and move in such a way that they won't be caught by it. Also, they will, it just really depends on where they're moving and whatnot as to where you actually place a W. You place a W too far, you'll miss them. You place a W too far on yourself, maybe they don't get hit, they're not pulled far enough. So it's something that requires a decent amount of Kerrigan play on to really get a feel for it.
That's interesting because a lot of times I was casting it E then W, but I'm hearing that it's better to cast W first and then pull them into it. Is that always the case?
It's not always the case, although it's a case where if you do that, 95% of the time you'll be all right. There's certainly times where, you just need a pull and you can go for that, or, the most common case is that, you've used your combo once and then the stun has a 4-second longer cooldown than the E, or it's something like 3 or 4 seconds longer. So your E will be back up before your W. So there's times where you'll do your combo once, and then you'll still be chasing someone. You'll throw down an E, and then, your W's up. Maybe throw down the W without the E at that point. Stuff like that.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt. Go on.
I forgot it. I guess
go into the talents. That's great.
So, level 1 for Kerrigan, the sort of de facto choice for her, since, as long as I can remember, has been Sweeping Grasp. Kerrigan's entire engine is based around pulling people. If you don't pull people, they're not going to get stunned. You're not, her entire thing is based around, I need to pull these people in. So increasing the range of your pull by 20%, in a lot of ways, is basically increasing Kerrigan's effectiveness by 20%, because you're going to be hitting people far more often. Because it's not the range on 20%. It's not just the width of the grasp; it's also the length of it as well. So you have a much more lenient timing on leaping in on someone and then doing W and E on them as they try and run out. And in fact, there's cases where if someone has a speed buff, something like a Lily or someone who gets sped up by one of a variety of effects, if you don't have the grasp range, you actually won't be able to pull them in. Like they just straight up run out. So that's really, really important to have.
Okay.
All right. And
So
then the number 4.
Yep. So for talent, for her second tier, she has more options here. Generally speaking, the common option that everyone goes is Envenom, and that's because it really synergizes with Kerrigan's strong early game. Oftentimes you'll go and say an Arthas, combo someone, put damage on them, but Envenom is high enough damage that it'll oftentimes be the difference between whether or not you kill, say, a Vala, a Nova, a Tassadar, someone who is, trying to squirt away with 20% HP. And Venom will do the extra burst damage you need to finish people off. And it's really important in the early game.
And Venom is one that we talked about last week. If you guys missed that show, we had Kevin Naki on talking about talents. And Envenom was one that we spent a lot of time talking about, so I'm really starting to appreciate that one. And it totally makes sense that it would fit well with Kerrigan.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, basically I'm not going to say every hero that gets Envenom takes it, since that's not the case now of heroes like Nova, but many of the heroes that get Envenom like taking it. It's also a favorite of Arthas. In fact, shout out to teammate of mine, Syracuse. I feel like anytime he dies to Arthas and Venom, he's just like, why does that hero have Envenom? Why did they take that hero Envenom? It's stupid. He should have Envenom. It's just kind of true. Like, Arthas' burst damage for tank is crazy, but that's another story. I will just note, if there are alternate viable talents, she can go Fury of the Swarm and go sort of a Battle Momentum Cleave build. And so the way that works is that Fury of the Swarm gives her a cleave, but Battle Momentum reduces her cooldowns by 0.5 for every enemy she hits. And the two stack together, so if you're in the middle of a creep wave and you're attacking stuff, her cooldowns come up much quicker. In general, though, just the power of ganks with Envenom outweighs that build. But that build is a fun alternate build if you want to go down that route.
Okay. And Envenom is an activatable, so that's one that if you feel like you have a problem with remembering extra keys, maybe you're going to sway toward not using Envenom. Although I have to report, Gilly, I've been practicing using my activatables, and I'm doing much better now. Much better.
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Oh.
Yay.
The joke from early alpha was the piano Kerrigan build, because so at one point you could get both sprint and rewind. So I would be playing Kerrigan on stream, and I would have, I think it was Envenom, Searing Attacks, sprint, rewind, blink at the end. So I had 5 activatables. And Kerrigan still gets quite a few activatables in, her standard course of play, but, she can't get sprint and rewind anymore, so I'll get to that after.
All right. So 7. Okay, so at 7, on her third tier, what's she going to pick up?
So this is a new talent that came in. This has not always existed, but it's actually awesome and saves her more times than you might think. Adaptation. It takes a while to get used to it. You have to keep in the back of your head, like, oh, I could have used it. But, you leap into a fight, or maybe if you don't even leap to a fight, say you run up to a fight and stun. Oftentimes people are going to want to switch on the Kerrigan. Adaptation gives you an extra escape way before Bolt of the Storm at 20. It means that you can leap to an ally, you can leap to a creep, and you can actually get out of bad situations that otherwise kill Kerrigan. And actually it counters, counter is a little bit of a strong word, but it can help you get out of situations that you otherwise might not have. Like, say a Stitches devours you and brings you behind a gate. You can use adaptation to leap back over the gate to your team if you don't have a ton of damage getting thrown on you. Stuff like that. It's a very, very useful talent.
That makes so much sense. I hadn't even bothered to look at that, but that's one thing that a lot of times my teammates will be like, Anna, jump out of the fight, and I'll be like, no, my Q, I can't jump to an ally, I can only jump to an enemy. Apparently that's not true anymore. I'm stoked.
Yay! Because you do like to run in.
I do, and the main problem I have with Kerrigan is that I tend to get myself into the middle of the fight, and then I'm like, oh, oops, I'm super squishy, and I'm dead. Like...
Why am I here?
It's like, I need an evac button.
Exactly. So this build is going to be perfect for me. And then 10, I see that we're taking Maelstrom as our heroic. I always want to call it ultimate, but heroic ability. Yeah. And why Maelstrom over Ultralisk?
Yeah, and the heroic ultimate. I'm not sure they're ever going to do that. Like, they'll eventually get out of people calling Stitches Pudge and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But ultimate just sounds. I don't know, beefier, meatier, something than heroic.
Yeah.
But whatever. Eventually we'll all adapt. But yeah, generally Maelstrom's been the way to go in Kerrigan. It did get nerfed a little bit in a recent patch, but it's still really, really good. The problem with the Ultralisk is that you can't control it after you send it out there. So half the time you'll throw it on someone, and then the Ultralisk will just get ADD and like start attacking. It's just like, this isn't what I got you for, Ultralisk.
Bad Ultralisk, bad.
I know, right? But aside from that, the Ultralisk also is kind of on the squishy side. So if you're in a fight where there's tons of AoE stuff going on, it's pretty frequent that the Ultralisk will just get gibbed by one effect or another, and that sort of lessens its viability.
Okay. Makes sense. So then, moving on to our level 13, I see you picked Rewind. Tell us about Rewind.
So, Kerrigan's power, sort of glossed over on the ultimate section, like, she doesn't gain a ton of power from her ult relative to the other heroes, but her base QWE skill set is very, very powerful. So Rewind lets you go through the entire thing twice in a row. It's phenomenal. It also, it's just good synergy to begin with, because you figure if you go in and pull, say, 2-3 people, they're recovering from a stun when suddenly you hit Rewind and you're stunning them again. So it's a lot of Team CC. And also, for adaptation, say you leap in, stun people, Rewind, stun them again. Well, Rewind just put your leap back off cooldown, and you can leap back out if it came down to it.
Oh. Is that ever going to give you a mana problem if you're not careful?
It will give you a mana problem sometimes, but in general, the way the back and forth goes, you usually have times where you can get back to Fountain, get your mana back, and otherwise, you can manage it. It's not too bad. You get mana issues though if you dare go overdrive it the next tier. Which, I guess let's move on to the next tier.
Sure.
So the next tier, usually kind of on the idea that her entire power is in her combo. It's pretty common for people to go Blade Torrent. Because Blade Torrent, it's increasing the radius of your stun, which means you're getting more of a margin for error on actually stunning people. So if you pull people in, you don't have to be super accurate with your pull. Or if there's just multiple people involved, you're just increasing the odds that you get multiple people in a single stun combo, which is excellent. It's phenomenal.
Great.
But, that's not to say that the other things in the tier thing don't have their purpose depending on the game. I'd say for comp, you usually want to go Blade Torrent, but say you're in a pub game where, your Vala is dying repeatedly and you can't count on her for damage. Maybe you go Overdrive in that case and try and burst out a little bit more extra damage to try and carry your team. It's not optimal, but you're adapting to the situation to say, okay, maybe I can do a little bit more to try and finish stuff out. Or if you queue into a game without support, which is horrible, by the way. It should not happen. It is the worst thing in the world where you solo queue, you have no main healer, and the other team, God forbid, has 2 healers. It's not that 2 healers is overpowered, but when you have no healing whatsoever, it feels bad. But if you're in a situation like that, maybe you go aggressive defense to give yourself some extra survivability. It's actually not a bad talent. It sort of undoes a nerf that Kerrigan used to have by default. But it's a pretty good talent, if in that situation.
Okay.
And then finally at 20...
Bolt of the Storm, another activatable. And I never use this one. I don't think I've ever taken Bolt of the Storm, so tell me why I should.
So Bolt of the Storm is a long-range blink that's incredible for either offense or defense. Defensively, if you're in a bad spot and people are swarming around you, you blink out. You'll usually be safe. You can even blink out and then leap to something to get even further away. It's a great escape. But it's also a very deceptive opening. In the late game, people are very much looking out for Kerrigan and stuff she can do. And the leap, it makes a big noise. It's it has travel time. It's not very deceptive. Bolt of the Storm is instant. If you blink in at a spot for a perfect pull and then throw out the pull, a lot of the times people aren't going to react in time. So it's a very good offensive initiate if you get the chance to use it like that.
Got it. Okay. So the build focuses on Kerrigan, her grab and stun, her pull and stun. And
Yes.
I guess I've always thought that Kerrigan's strength was kind of in her shields, and so I'm always building for damage, but it makes sense that my pull and stun is going to be my best way of doing damage in this case, too. So, cool.
And then fixing her problem of no escape as well with the bolt and the adaptation.
So are you seeing her more often in competitive play now, ZP, or is she still kind of a bit of a pariah these days?
You don't see her as much. There's definitely been plenty of tournament games, I can think of in recent memory where, one team, one of the teams has actually used her and won. So she's definitely a good pick to play on the map. So I guess Kerrigan counters, I should mention. I'm not sure I'd say hard counters, but certainly stuff that gives her trouble. picking her into a hero like Uther is hard. People have gotten better at dealing with her shenanigans. So if you're going against a team that has like very good, quick, immediate hard CC, it's more difficult to do her stuff because she leaps in and then she gets stunned and she can't do her combo and she gets blown up. So I think it's important in a lot of cases to pick Kerrigan in the teams that aren't going to give her the most trouble. Heroes like Diablo can also give her a lot of trouble too. I know when I play Diablo, which isn't as frequent as it used to be, in the past, but you can actually time Diablo's Q. So like Kerrigan's mid pull, and if you interrupt her or displace her mid pull, the pull won't go off and it ruins her day. So Kerrigan, especially at the high level, has to be very patient, has to look for the right opportunity, and in general, you don't want to pick her into certain teams. So that's sort of her weaknesses. But I will also note that for general pubbing play, she doesn't really have to worry about that. Like, people aren't going to be as on the ball or as coordinated in avoiding her stuff. I still think she's one of the absolute strongest solo queue heroes that's around. Or just like general pub play in general.
That makes a lot of sense. Cool.
There you go, Anna. You just need to play more solo queue.
Oh my gosh. Please no. But when I do, I'll pick my girl Kerrigan.
There you go.
I will say this, solo queue is a little bit rough this week just because they had a huge invite wave. So there's a lot of people that are brand new to the game, and like everyone's stuff got reset, so you're playing with only the free-to-play heroes in a lot of the games, especially at the lower MMR. So it's a little bit rough to be solo queuing right now.
Yeah.
The struggle is real. Okay, guys, so that actually brings us to the point in our show where we do our weekly quiz. So this started out as a way for you guys to help.
Out, buddy.
No.
Oh, wait, you're back now.
Oh my gosh, I was so scared. There's actually like some sort of fireworks show or something going on outside. I thought for a second I was in like Cloverfield or there were bombs happening or something. If I zoned out for a second, that's why. So if the internet goes out, I'll try to text you and let you know I'm alive. But yeah, Anyway, moving on from that with our quiz, like I was saying, JC and I started the quiz as a way for us to engage with you in our kind of education about the game. You could ask us questions to make sure that we were really paying attention in this show and shows previous. So if you want to give us a question that you want to make sure we were paying attention to and that we know the answer to, or something that you think we might not have caught, something like that, please use the hashtag StormShow and send us your question. We'll try to get as many right as we possibly can. But because we have ZP here and because we have the access to his amazing library of skill and his dizzying intellect, we also want to let you ask him questions as well. So if you have a question for ZP, again, use that same hashtag StormShow. You can tweet at myself, at Gillyweed, or at him, or none at all. Just use that hashtag because that's where we're going to find it. I think we have a few questions already, right, Gilly?
We do. We have a lot of questions from several different people, Fairgrim, Ogre Yonder, that have to do with how many seeds are available in every night phase. So we discussed the small camps, which are 15 each. So there's 4 of those on the map at a time. So that's 60.
I guess I was assuming that each, like north and south, each have 100 seeds. I don't know if that's true, but I was just assuming that we had 70 in the big guy. Is that true?
You're not too far off. It's 60 per big plant and 15 per each small camp, which adds up to being 90 per side. So 15 in the small camp, 60 in the big camp.
Okay.
So if both teams split and one team grabs north and the other team grabs the south, neither team gets a plant for that night.
Got it. That's cool. I'm glad they did that because that means you have to go out of your comfort zone into enemy territory, if you will, and grab one more camp than just kind of camping at the top. That's cool. I dig that.
Yep. And that's also why the small camps are so important, because say you want your team to go, say, to the south side of the map, but you grab one of the north side small camps, and you were at 0 seeds or close to it. You'll be able to finish off the plant with the rest of the seeds on the bottom.
Got it.
So
okay.
You said 60 in the large guy?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I was writing it down. I'm taking notes.
Me too. All right. So that question was from Ogre Yonder.
Ogre and Fairgrim both asked about the seeds.
Got it. Topher asked, does the terror strength change depending on how long it's been alive? Yes.
It does. It gets easier.
Mm-hmm. Easier to kill the longer it's been up.
I like this question also from Topher Doll. In most cases, is indecision as bad as an incorrect decision?
It's worse.
So much worse.
All right. Any other questions you see, Gilly?
The main question, I mean, really, from Nick Hotz is, will ZP be using his webcam on stream from now on?
Honestly, it'll depend. Like, maybe some days. I probably wouldn't do it every day, but we'll see. It'll depend on the mood. I'll definitely mix it in at some point.
Well, we are really happy that you brought it on our show. Thank you for doing that.
Sorry, one more question for ZP. Thoughts on Lily?
Avoid. Do not play. Like, it has the lowest win rate on Hatsalog. She's not good. Just do not play her right now. I mean, I get, even if you like Panda Bears or something, think it's a cool character, please just leave her alone. I think it was a recent Blue Post that said that, she actually got nerfed this patch. I was just like, why in God's name did you nerf her? No one was playing her. And it turns out that it's sort of, she's in a transition period where they are working on buffing her, it sounds like. But she's not there yet, so... work in progress, yellow construction tape. Just leave Lily alone for now.
Yellow construction tape. Kevin Naki last week was we were kind of all obsessing over this damage Lily build, and we've had a couple Storm Show watchers kind of tweeting us and letting us know their success with the damage Lily. I think it may not be a good standard build, but apparently some people have been having some success with it.
I believe he called it Troll Lily.
Oh yeah, Trollili. Troll Lily.
Well, the interesting thing about Lily is that even in pubs, to some extent, she's still more useful there than she is in comp games because you're not always, people can find hard to kill her because of her passive and her self-healing. So, if you're trying to, damage people and then just sort of using decent mechanics with that, in pubs, if people aren't running your heroes that sort of hard CC and, murder her effortlessly, you can definitely have some success with it. Just don't run her into like an Arthas Kerrigan or, people that keep you locked down for a million years.
Right. All right, I think, did we hit all the questions? People are not feeling very quizzy today.
Yeah, I think so.
Well,
that's okay. We were a little bit over.
Yeah, that's fine. We actually did start a little bit late, and we have a really exciting play session planned for you guys. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to a quick break. We're going to set up some teams, and we are going to play on Garden of Terror because we now have the ability to do custom games. Yay! And we are going to be playing with ZP. He's going to be giving us tips, teaching us some decision-making, hopefully helping us emerge victorious. You're going to see some familiar faces and names from the community on our teams, and we'll be back in just a few minutes as soon as we get that all set up.
See you soon.